Hello everyone, today's case takes us to Newport Beach, a stunning city in Southern California, known as one of America's wealthiest. With its pleasant climate and gorgeous scenery, it's become a paradise for relaxation. But that beauty comes with a price, literally. The average home here costs over $1 million, making it a playground for the elite. It's a sunny October 10th, 2012. That afternoon, a private justice pulls up to an upscale neighborhood, dropping off students from a private school. Parents usually wait to pick up their kids. But today, 3 boys are left standing alone, no parents in sight. The eldest tries calling his mom and dad, but no one answers. A kind neighbor notices and offers to drive them home. When they arrive, the house is eerily quiet, too quiet. The neighbor, sensing something's off, takes the boys to her place, feeds them dinner, and tries calling their parents again. Still no answer. Worried, she calls the police. The police arrive quickly at the address, a $2.5 million 2-story villa. They begin searching the house. The first floor looks pristine, everything neat, no signs of a break-in. But when they head upstairs, the scene changes. In the home office, they find the safe wide open. No cash inside, just some financial documents, passports, and personal items. Then, in the bathroom, they stumble upon chaos, shattered pieces of a vase and a jar, blood splattered around the bathtub drain and on the walls. It's clear a struggle took place. The police check the garage and notice the family's SUV is gone. Security footage from the neighborhood shows the SUV leaving around 1:30 p.m. that day. The police suspect a violent altercation, possibly a murder, but without a body, they can't be sure. Then, a new development. A call comes in from the homeowner, Peter Chadwick, and it's coming from San Diego, 100 miles away. Peter's story is wild. He claims that on the day of the incident, he brought a painter named Juan to the house to do some work. While Juan went upstairs to check the walls, Peter stepped downstairs to grab something. His wife, Lim, was taking a bath upstairs. Moments later, he heard her scream. Rushing up, he found Juan attacking her in the bedroom. Juan, wielding a small knife, threatened Peter, forcing him to comply. According to Peter, he was made to move his wife's body to the backseat of the SUV and drive to San Diego, a border city between the U.S. and Mexico, under Juan's orders. Once there, they met another man, Chen. Juan and Chen allegedly transferred Lim's body to a pickup truck, planning to dump it in Mexico. Afterward, they abandoned Peter at a gas station, where he made the call to the police. The 911 operator listens to Peter's story, but something doesn't add up. It sounds off. Why would Juan, a random painter, attack Peter's wife, someone he didn't even know? The timeline is messy too. If Peter brought Juan to the house, why was Lim bathing upstairs? And why would Peter let Juan go upstairs while his wife was in the bath? Most baffling, how did Juan allegedly kill Lim just seconds after going upstairs? The story's holes are glaring, and the police are starting to question Peter's account. The police are growing suspicious, and they keep Peter on the phone as long as possible to buy time for local officers to reach him. Just before he can hang up, San Diego police arrive at the gas station. Peter doesn't resist, doesn't lash out, doesn't even seem distraught. He's eerily calm as they bring him to the station. The officers notice scratches on his neck, a bite mark on his arm, and dried blood on his hands. When questioned about his wife, Peter clams up and demands a lawyer. His behavior only deepens their suspicions that he, not some mysterious painter, is responsible for his wife's death. Investigators start picking apart Peter's story, and it's unraveling fast. He claims Lim was killed around 11 p.m. But neighborhood security footage shows his SUV leaving 2 hours later, with only Peter inside, no Juan, no one else. The police scour footage from the area where Peter says he met Juan, but there's no sign of him, no suspicious vehicles, no trace of this supposed painter. Juan, it seems, is a ghost. When asked about the scratches and bite mark, Peter mumbles something about a scuffle with the painter but can't provide any clear details about the fight or his injuries. Then, the police find a suitcase in his SUV, packed with men's clothing, thrown together in a hurry. Would a kidnapper really give their victim time to pack a bag? It's absurd. And the police aren't buying Peter's story anymore. That same day, they arrest him on charges of first-degree murder. 7 days later, near where Peter was apprehended, detectives discover a large dumpster on a secluded hillside. Inside, they find an elegant wallet belonging to Lim, containing her permanent resident card and $10,000 in cash. There's also a green rug in the dumpster. When they unroll it, Lim's body tumbles out. The discovery feels almost guided, as if someone wanted it found. The dumpster was scheduled for pickup the previous Thursday, the morning after Peter's 911 call, but a dispute over fees delayed the collection, leaving the body there as a critical piece of evidence. Forensic analysis paints a grim picture. Lim endured a brutal struggle before being suffocated and drowned. If Juan were real, there's no way he could have done this in mere seconds or minutes. As Peter claimed, Peter, alone in the house, is the only one who could have committed the crime. But the question lingers: why? What happened between this couple in their lavish mansion to lead to such a horrific end? Peter Chadwick, 48, a British-American dual citizen, is a wealthy real estate investor. His wife, Lim, 46, originally from Malaysia, came to the UMaterWis in the 1980s to study at Arizona State University. It was on that campus where she met and fell in love with Peter, and their romance quickly led to marriage. Both came from affluent families. Peter's father was in real estate, and Peter followed suit, investing in rental properties that allowed him to provide for his family without working long hours. Lim, despite her American education, grew up in Malaysia and wasn't fully versed in U.S. culture. After their 3 children were born, she embraced her role as a homemaker, while Peter handled the family's external affairs. At the time of the incident, their kids were 14, 10, and 8 years old. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple, rich, with plenty of time to enjoy life, and raising 3 well-mannered children. They hosted lavish parties at their mansion, took their kids on global vacations, and lived a lifestyle that sparked envy. Friends described Lim as kind, cheerful, witty, and warm, a beloved figure among neighbors and peers. Peter, on the other hand, was quiet, reserved, and carried an air of mystery that left people curious. But beneath the polished surface, their marriage was crumbling. The cracks started with financial troubles. Peter's real estate investments had hit a rough patch. Though they maintained their extravagant lifestyle, Peter wasn't as wealthy as he appeared. Things got worse when Lim discovered Peter was having an affair. She stumbled upon a list on his computer detailing expenses for an abortion in California, massage services, and the names of divorce attorneys. Close friends said Lim would break down in tears, confiding how poorly Peter treated her. Peter, meanwhile, admitted to others that he wanted a divorce but held back, claiming he wanted his kids to grow up in a loving, intact family. By 1 or 2 years before the murder, any affection between Lim and Peter had vanished. Lim's life revolved around her children. Her account passwords were all tied to their names, a testament to her devotion. Just days before the incident, she was helping her youngest with math, taking her 14-year-old son out to eat, and planning for Thanksgiving, showing her careful, responsible nature as a mother. But she was also preparing for a new chapter. With little work experience in the U.S. and a life financially dependent on Peter, Lim had been quietly transforming. Over the past 2 years, she lost weight, started wearing makeup, dressed more stylishly, and spent more time dining and traveling with friends. She was shifting her focus from her family to herself, reclaiming her independence. Then came a humiliating blow. Lim discovered Peter had contracted a sexually transmitted disease, likely from his infidelity. This revelation pushed their already fractured relationship to the breaking point. A few neighbors recall hearing Lim's piercing screams the morning before the murder. At the time, they brushed it off as just another marital spat, never imagining the horror that would unfold the next day. Despite the mounting evidence pointing to Peter as the prime suspect, the police make a surprising move. They release him on a $1 million bail. He's required to surrender his British and U.S. passports and show up for monthly court hearings. Peter relocates to his father's home in Santa Barbara, but it soon becomes clear that letting him out was a grave mistake. In January 2015, Peter fails to appear for a court hearing. When police visit his father's house, they learn he's vanished, and no one knows where he's gone. A relative mentions Peter once talked about heading to Seattle. In his room, investigators find 2 books about evading the law and changing identities, clear signs of a plan. Peter's escape is meticulous this time. He drains his bank accounts, pulls cash from multiple credit cards, and takes off with $1 million in cash. He also leaves a trail of misdirection browser histories showing searches for fleeing to Canada, a plane ticket to Seattle, and queries about living in Mexico. They even discover he used a fake identity to slip through an airport. Security footage from January 9th, 2015 shows a taxi pulling up to his parents' house around 11 a.m. The driver says he was carrying a female passenger who headed toward the airport but soon changed into men's clothing. That person was unmistakably Peter. Instead of boarding a flight, he lingers at the airport for 6 hours before taking another taxi and disappearing. That same day, his phone goes dead. Later, police find it discarded in a landfill. From that moment, Peter cuts off all contact with his family, including his 3 children. The police quickly add Peter to the international most wanted list, launching a manhunt across the U.S., Alaska, Canada, and Mexico. But 3 years pass with no trace of him. In 2018, desperate for a break, the authorities switch tactics. They create a crime blog, publicizing Peter's personal details and offering a $100 reward for information leading to his capture. His story spreads like wildfire. Hundreds of tips pour in, and one of those leads finally gives the police what they need to track Peter down. On August 4th, 2019, after over 4 years on the run, federal police finally catch Peter near Puebla, a city in southern Mexico. He's been living in an upscale villa community for white expatriates in a small town, blending in by dyeing his hair black and growing a beard to look younger. When they search his place, authorities uncover a stash of fake IDs. Peter's even been posing as a SHIELD agent to dodge local police. During his years in hiding, he's used cash to stay in luxury hotels, switching to new ones whenever a passport is required. To his new acquaintances, he spins a tale that his entire family died in 2014, tied to the mysterious disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which only adds to his enigmatic aura. Back in 2016, Peter starts a romantic relationship with a local woman named Claudia in the town of Pascualino. One Monday in May, he, Claudia, and her sister attend a concert. On their way back, a car accident kills Claudia, and her sister ends up in a coma for 15 days. Claudia's family is pressured to sign a legal document absolving Peter of responsibility, but her mother insists the document is fabricated and that Peter is somehow tied to her daughter's death. After the incident, Peter bolts, resettling in another small town. There, he takes a low-profile job cleaning at a cafe, living in constant fear of being recognized. Eventually, when money runs low, he makes a desperate call to his family for help. That public phone call gives police the location they need to nab him. It's not until February 2022, nearly a decade after his wife's death, that Peter, now 57, admits to killing Lim. In the end, he's sentenced to 15 years in prison for second-degree murder, with a minimum of 12 years before he's eligible for parole. Some argue he should also face justice for the Mexican woman's death in the car accident. But that case never makes it to court. It's hard to predict the future, isn't it? A marriage between two people from distant countries, spanning decades. A family of 5 that seems so perfect gone in a single night. Those poor kids, caught in the wreckage of it all. What do you think of the sentence? Does it feel too lenient for the devastation this killer caused?
The infamous Northeast Five Tigers crime syndicate. The criminal gang known as the Northeast Five Tigers carried out a series of brutal massacres, robberies, and rapes across multiple regions. Over a span of 2 years, they murdered at least 18 people and sexually assaulted 2 victims. Their reign of terror only ended when all 5 members were captured and sentenced to death. Hello everyone, today we're going to delve into the story of an infamous gang, the Northeast Five Tigers, monsters disguised as humans. Before we dive into the case, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. True Crime Film sincerely thanks you for your support. The name Northeast Five Tigers refers to 5 ruthless criminals: Zhu Gang, Jiang Jingzong, Liu Baohua, Liu Jinxiang, and Zhang Yuetian. In just 2 short years, driven by personal gain, they traversed several provinces, committing 27 crimes in total and murdering 18 innocent people. What's most terrifying is that they didn't just kill. They orchestrated entire family massacres, sparing neither children nor the elderly. Many families were completely destroyed, leaving behind grief and loss beyond repair. The methods used by the Northeast Five Tigers were exceptionally brutal, causing widespread fear among the public. People lived in constant terror, unable to find peace day or night. They left no witnesses alive after each crime, making police investigations extraordinarily difficult. But it didn't stop there. The gang was also extremely cunning. To mislead the police, they used fake identities and frequently moved between different areas to commit their crimes. So, what exactly turned the Northeast Five Tigers into cold-blooded killers, capable of murder without a second thought? We'll uncover the answer shortly. All 5 members of the Northeast Five Tigers were born and raised in Northeast China. Although they came from different cities, they shared similar childhood experiences. Their parents adopted a laissez-faire approach to parenting, rarely paying attention to or managing their children's behavior. As a result, from a young age, all 5 of them developed bad habits such as smoking, drinking, fighting, and engaging in violent activities. By the time they were 15 or 16, driven by a lack of money, they had already ventured into petty theft. It was only at this point that their parents realized something was wrong and tried to intervene. However, as the saying goes, a leopard can't change its spots. Their bad habits had become deeply ingrained, and parental guidance was no longer effective. These individuals simply ignored all advice and continued down a reckless, delinquent path. By chance, these 5 young men met and quickly became close friends. Sharing similar childhood backgrounds and upbringings, they bonded easily and treated each other like family. However, instead of supporting one another to improve their lives, their unity marked the beginning of a long trail of crimes. At first, the group collaborated on scams and petty thefts, but as they grew older, they became dissatisfied with the small amounts of money they were making. They started craving bigger things, wanting to indulge in a lavish, hedonistic lifestyle instead of merely scraping by as they had before. Driven by these desires, the Northeast Five Tigers embarked on a far more dangerous criminal journey. To achieve their goals, they began planning more serious crimes. As the leader of the group, Zhu Gang started researching and modifying weapons. After studying various materials about firearms, he taught himself how to successfully craft a double-barreled handgun. With a firearm in their possession, the group initiated a terrifying spree of violent acts. They typically targeted busy, densely populated areas, taking turns to follow potential victims. Once they identified an opportune moment, they would carry out armed robberies. To avoid being identified, the 5 men gave themselves fake names and agreed that during their crimes, they would never call each other by their real names. If necessary, they would only use nicknames. In the event that one of them was caught, They were instructed to stick to their fake identities and never reveal the identities of their accomplices. This was the foundation of a criminal alliance that left a trail of fear, destruction, and death in its wake. In 1996, the gang carried out their first armed robbery. Their target was an accountant who had just withdrawn a large sum of money from the bank for a factory. Since it was their first crime, they were extremely nervous and clumsy, which gave the accountant an opportunity to try to escape. When Zhu Gang saw the accountant attempting to flee, he immediately pulled out a gun and fired a shot at the man's back. However, the bullet missed. Despite not hitting the target, the sheer terror caused the accountant to collapse to the ground, wetting himself out of fear. Taking advantage of the situation, Zhu Gang snatched the bag from the man and quickly fled the scene with his accomplices. After the gang fled, the accountant rushed to the police station to report the incident. In his statement, he mentioned that the leader of the gang had introduced himself as Meng Fanming. The police promptly arrived at the crime scene to investigate. There, they found an empty shell casing on the ground. Through technical analysis, investigators determined that the weapon used was a modified small-caliber handgun, originally designed as a signal pistol. The police then focused their investigation on the man named Meng Fanming. However, after extensive efforts to track down records, they found no information about anyone with that name. It was at this point that investigators realized the gang was cunning and had used fake identities. In reality, Meng Fanming was just an alias used by Zhu Gang. The investigation reached a dead end. Apart from the shell casing at the crime scene, the police had no other clues about the perpetrators. The lack of information severely stalled the progress of the case. Meanwhile, the Northeast Five Tigers were living lavishly off the money they had stolen. For 2 months, the group indulged in extravagant spending without facing any pursuit from the police. This led them to become overconfident, believing their plan was flawless. However, as the stolen money from their first heist gradually ran out, the group began planning their next robbery. This time, the 5 criminals masked their faces and broke into the home of a single woman. Although they quickly subdued the victim, she refused to comply when they demanded money. Instead, she loudly insulted the Northeast Five Tigers and even threatened to call the police. At that moment, the group was solely focused on getting money, so they didn't take her threats seriously. When she still refused to hand over her valuables, they began searching the house themselves. Seizing an opportunity, the woman managed to free herself from her restraints and attempted to escape. Zhu Gang immediately pulled out his gun and shot her in the head, killing her instantly. Seeing the pool of blood spreading across the floor, all 5 men were overwhelmed with fear. This was the first time they had committed murder during a robbery. Their original goal was simply to steal money, but this unexpected incident left them in shock. In a panic, they hastily wiped down the crime scene to remove any traces, abandoned their search for valuables, and fled. Shortly after, the police received a report and arrived at the scene. However, by the time they got there, all evidence had been meticulously cleaned, and there were no witnesses to the crime. Crime scene investigations and interviews with nearby residents yielded no useful leads. At this point, a forensic technician unexpectedly discovered a bullet lodged in the ceiling, which became the only clue in the case. Upon analysis, the police found that the bullet matched the type used in the robbery 2 months earlier. A more detailed comparison confirmed that both bullets had been fired from the same gun. This led to the conclusion that the perpetrator was again the man using the alias Meng Fanming. However, despite establishing a link between the 2 cases, the police still had no further information to advance their investigation. The case once again hit a dead end. Meanwhile, after escaping, the 5 criminals quickly overcame their fear of committing their first murder. Instead of feeling anxious, they began to experience a sense of excitement and thrill. Realizing that the police had failed to track them down only boosted their confidence. This marked a psychological turning point for the gang, transforming them from mere robbers focused on money into ruthless killers without hesitation. The 5 criminals grew increasingly reckless and brutal. They believed that as long as no witnesses were left alive, the police would never be able to catch them. This belief fueled their escalating violence. To mislead the police and complicate the investigation, the gang continuously moved between different regions, from Liaoning province to Hebei, Shaanxi, Hunan, and Hubei, covering 11 counties, cities, and villages in total. Their criminal spree left a trail of terror and bloodshed across these regions, marking them as some of the most ruthless criminals in modern Chinese history. In just 2 short years, the Northeast Five Tigers carried out over 20 heinous crimes, killing 13 innocent people, seriously injuring 4 others, and committing a series of horrifying family massacres. Due to the severity of these crimes, numerous criminal experts from various provinces were dispatched to collaborate with local police to analyze and discuss the crime spree. However, this gang had an exceptional ability to eliminate evidence and cover their tracks. In all the crime scenes, the only physical evidence left behind was spent shell casings. No fingerprints, footprints, or other forensic traces could be found. Under such circumstances, the police could only issue nationwide wanted notices, hoping that the public might provide information to aid the investigation. But searching for clues felt like looking for a needle in a haystack, and no significant breakthroughs were made. The investigation remained stalled. Meanwhile, the 5 demons showed no signs of stopping despite being wanted. They continued to move around, committing crimes in different locations. On March 12, 1997, the gang arrived in Hubei province, targeting a small grocery store. After observing the area, they discovered that this was the busiest store in the neighborhood, but it was operated by a single man, making him an easy target. That evening, Zhu Gang pretended to be a customer wanting to buy cigarettes. Using this excuse, he convinced the shop owner, who had already closed for the day, to reopen the store. As soon as the door opened, Zhu Gang brutally struck the shop owner on the head with the butt of his gun, knocking him unconscious instantly. At that moment, the other 4 gang members, who had been hiding nearby, rushed in and locked the door behind them. They began ransacking the store, stuffing high-end cigarettes and stacks of cash into backpacks they had prepared in advance. The loot from this heist was substantial, and the gang laughed loudly, completely letting their guard down. However, the noise woke the shop owner's wife, who had been resting in a room behind the store. Hearing strange sounds, she went through the back courtyard to check what was happening. As soon as she reached the shop, she saw her husband lying motionless on the floor. Without saying a word, she rushed over to check on him. Unfortunately, her sudden appearance alerted the Northeast Five Tigers. Realizing that the shop owner was regaining consciousness, Zhu Gang and his accomplices quickly subdued both husband and wife. They tied them up, gagged them with duct tape, and ensured there was no chance for them to call for help. After restraining the couple, the gang continued to search the store thoroughly, taking anything valuable, including the gold necklace around the wife's neck. Once their backpacks were filled with loot, Zhu Gang decided it was time to kill the witnesses to eliminate any potential threats. At that exact moment, a 5-year-old girl wandered into the shop from the backyard. She was the youngest daughter of the shop-owning couple. Innocently waking up in the middle of the night and not finding her parents, she had come to the shop looking for them. But faced with the child's innocence, Zhu Gang didn't hesitate for a second. He raised his gun, aimed it directly at the little girl, and pulled the trigger. The innocent child collapsed instantly, her life extinguished in a heartbeat. Realizing that the family might have more members, the gang decided to leave no survivors. They dragged the shop owner and his wife to the backyard and proceeded to the main house. There, they opened the bedroom doors and found the couple's 2 older daughters sleeping soundly. Upon seeing the 2 beautiful girls, the 5 monsters developed even more sinister intentions. Instead of killing them immediately, they took turns sexually assaulting the sisters. After satisfying their depraved desires, the gang coldly murdered the entire family to eliminate all witnesses. In one horrific night, an entire family of 5 was brutally slaughtered. The next morning, neighbors noticed that the grocery store hadn't opened as usual and reported it to the police. Upon arrival, the police meticulously collected evidence and investigated every aspect of the victims' lives, including their lifestyle, debts, and personal relationships. The special investigation team questioned hundreds of potential suspects, but eventually ruled them all out. The crime scene mirrored previous cases. No fingerprints, no footprints, and no clues except for spent shell casings. Upon examination, the police found that the bullets matched those used in massacres that had occurred in Liaoning, Hebei, and Yicheng during the spring of 1996. Law enforcement agencies from the affected provinces immediately coordinated and shared information, but the only lead they had remained the alias Meng Fanming. Despite their efforts, the identity behind this fake name remained elusive, and the investigation once again reached a dead end. The final fall of the Northeast Five Tigers. However, even the most cunning criminals can't outsmart determined investigators. On August 10, 1997, the Hubei police, while on an assignment, received a crucial tip. On July 29th, the police in Danjianka City had arrested 4 suspects involved in plotting to rob an ancient tomb. During the arrest, they confiscated a small double-barreled pistol. One of the suspects identified himself as Meng Danming, but during the interrogation, he managed to exploit a moment of carelessness and escaped. This left only 3 suspects in custody. What stood out was that when the confiscated firearm was compared with shell casings found at previous crime scenes, investigators confirmed that it was indeed the weapon used in the Hubei family massacre, where 5 people were brutally murdered. On August 12th, the 3 suspects, Liu Baohua, Liu Jinxiang, and Zhang Yuetian, were transferred to Hubei for further investigation. After 12 hours of intense interrogation, Liu Baohua and Liu Jinxiang confessed to all their crimes and revealed that Meng Fanming was in fact Zhu Gang, the gang's leader. They also disclosed that their accomplice, Jiang Jingzong, was currently serving a 1-year prison sentence for theft. The next day, on August 13th, around 9:30 a.m., Zhu Gang's lover and Liu Baohua's wife arrived at the Danjianka police station, intending to post bail for the detained suspects. The police quickly realized that these 2 women might know Zhu Gang's whereabouts. Acting swiftly, they devised a plan to track the women and capture the gang leader. At around 1:30 p.m., the 2 women left the station in a vehicle heading toward Shiyan City in search of Zhu Gang. Investigators discreetly followed them. By 6:30 p.m., the vehicle stopped in the Zhujiaoyuan area, prompting the police to mobilize and set up a perimeter around the location. At 7 a.m. on August 14th, officers spotted Zhu Gang hiding in the area. A large police force was deployed to apprehend him, and after a tense operation, Zhu Gang was finally captured. On August 15th, the Hubei police also transferred Jiang Jingzong, who was still serving time in prison, for further interrogation. With the arrest of all 5 members of the Northeast Five Tigers, the brutal series of massacres finally came to an end. The verdict and execution. In early 1998, the Intermediate People's Court sentenced Zhu Gang, Jiang Jingzong, Liu Baohua, Liu Jinxiang, and Zhang Yuetian to death. However, all 5 appealed their sentences. On April 24, 1998, the Hubei High People's Court upheld the original verdicts and rejected their appeals. Shortly after the ruling, all 5 criminals were taken to the execution grounds and executed by firing squad. The notorious Northeast Five Tigers, who had instilled fear and committed unimaginable atrocities, ultimately faced the punishment they deserved. No crime is perfect, and the truth will always come to light. Despite having similar backgrounds and circumstances, these 5 individuals allowed negative influences and destructive choices to dictate their lives. Had they channeled their energy into positive pursuits, they could have created meaningful lives instead of becoming cold-blooded killers. What are your thoughts on the Northeast Five Tigers case? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more true crime cases. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.